Hello and welcome to the lecture on project section. In this project, we'll create an employee class. And in this employee class, we will try to calculate the salary of an employee. Okay, we'll try to use some of the details like working hours per day of a employee, his hourly rate and total leaves taken, and how many is the working days. And based on this information, we'll try to calculate the salary of that employee. And whatever the concepts that we have learned so far, how to create a class, how to create properties and methods, and also how to create an instance of a class. We'll reuse all these concepts and then we'll try to implement in the employee class. Okay, so let's do the project now. So we create a folder called project employee class, and then we'll create a file called employee.php, and then we'll open this file in the Sublime. Okay, so in this project we will try to calculate employee salary. Okay, and this employee salary will be based on how many working hours per day we have, what is the hourly rate, total leave taken, and the working days. So let's create the class. We call it as employee. Then we'll define some properties of an employee. Okay, we'll define his ID, could be an employee ID, the name of the employee, then we'll define the working hour per day, that is 8 hours per day, could be 8.5 or 9 hours per day. Then we have a property of defining hourly rate, that is $15. Then we'll have a property to store total leave taken, then we have the working days. This is the working days per month. Okay, and then we'll write a function to get the salary amount of that particular employee. To get the salary amount, we have to pass how many days he has worked, right? And then we'll return a salary of that particular employee. Okay, the total days is the total working days that the employee has been worked, okay, in a month. So we're going to use a variable called this. We have a separate section on what is this variable called this, but for now this is a special variable which can be used to access class properties. Okay, the $this, we have a separate section. The next section is just to work on this $this. But for now, to understand what is $this basically refers to this class instance. And using $this, you can actually access the class properties. You cannot directly access the property like this, even though the property is been defined here. To access this property of a class, you have to use something called as this. And this is basically an instance of this class, whatever the current instance is. And this is a keyword that you have to use this, and then using which you can access the class variables. Okay, so using this, now we can say the working days. We'll try to calculate the working days of an employee. So total days, how many days he has worked, minus the total leave taken. Okay, the total leave taken, we will try to add it when we create the object. So total working days, which is equal to total days minus his leaves. Okay, and then we'll calculate the salary now. To calculate the salary, we need to just multiply the working days with the working hours per day and multiplied by the hourly rate. Okay, and then we'll return the salary. Very simple and straightforward. There's nothing fancy here, but you have to understand one concept is this, which we'll cover in the next section, is the way to access your class properties. Okay, and it refers to an object of this instance. Whatever the object that you're referring to, based on that object, property values will be used in the calculation that you have written here. Okay, so now you have a class, employee class, which is representing with some ID, name, and how many hours per day he has, what is his hourly rate, total leave taken, and working days. Then we have calculated his salary. Okay, let's try to create employees and then we'll calculate their salary. Okay, so let's say we have an employee 1. Okay, this is how you create an instance of a class using the new keyword and then the class name with the closing with the parenthesis. And then now you can try to add the property of it. So the property of an employee 1 could be 101. Then you can add his name. It's a string, so you can add like his name. And then you have to pass in how many leave he has taken. Okay, you can even say that. Total leave taken in that month is 4. Okay, now you can calculate his salary. Okay, his salary is equal to, you'll call the method get salary amount, and then we'll pass how many is the working days. So 20 working days, and he has taken 4 leave, and that is ID and the name. So we'll get the salary based on whatever the parameters set in this class. Okay, and then we'll try to print that. So we'll say echo, we'll write an end line, that's a new line. We'll try to print all the property of the employee 1. So we'll say employee 1, name has worked for these many days and taken this is the total leave taken, so we'll say that is the leaves. Then we'll print his salary also. Because we have stored the salary, we can now use the salary. Okay, so this is how you basically create a class, define some properties. You can use this variable to access your class properties, and then you can write a function, and then with the instance of a class you can access all those properties and methods. Okay, you can create an employee 2. So now you can just replicate the code that you have and just change the instance of it. And you can call him with a different name now. This time you can see he has taken 2 leaves. Okay, and that should be enough for you to understand the concept here now. How to create a class, how to create methods, how to create properties, then how to create an instance, how to access the property from that object, how to call a method from that object, and how to access those properties. Okay, so let's execute this. Okay, so if you compare it with the code, so John Smith has worked for 16 days and taken 4 leaves, so the salary will be 1920 USD. And Jacob has worked for 18 days, taken 2 leaves, so his salary is 2160. So you see how easy it is to write your code in components. You have just written the core logic here with the properties that you require for that employee, and you have all the details to calculate his salary. And now we're just passing the data that is required for this class to operate. So what you have done is you have actually created an employee object. Okay, you are represented a real life example into a class. So instead of calculating this into a spreadsheet, you actually created an employee class, and then you have defined all the properties and methods required for that employee to operate. Well, this is how the OOPS work. You define a class, you correlate all the properties and the methods for that specific class, then you create an instance of it, and then you try to replicate that instance based on whatever data that you have, because you have employees, and for each employee the ID, name, and how many days he has worked and salary will be different. So you can just have to create the code for one time, that is the class, and every time you create an instance of it, you just pump up the different data into it. Okay, so this is how you can work through and create an employee class, and this is a perfect example to understand how OOPS work. Okay, well, I want you to try this example. Write a class, try to create some properties and methods, and try to access those properties, and then play around with it. How do you create your own concepts into an object? Okay, so that's all for this lecture on a project on employee salary. Then I'll see you in the next lecture.